All right, let's dive right in. We're talking about a huge topic for pretty much any software team today. How in the world do you pick the right AI coding assistant when you're working in a complex enterprise setup? I mean, the market is just flooded with options, the promises are massive, so let's try and cut through some of that noise. Okay, so here's the question that really gets to the heart of it all. This is what separates the cool tech demos from the tools you can actually use day to day. Sure, we've all seen an AI whip up a quick function or a little script. That's table stakes now. But the real question is, can it understand the messy reality of your code base? You know, the one with 5 years of history, all those technical decisions, the hidden dependencies. That's the real test. And that brings us right to the main idea we're going to unpack here, the huge, critical difference between syntax and architecture. Think of it like this. Syntax is just the grammar of a language. It's knowing how to form a sentence. But architecture, that's the plot of the entire novel. It's the web of relationships, the logic connecting everything. And here's the kicker. Most AI tools are fantastic at grammar, but they can, and often do, fail spectacularly when it comes to understanding the plot. So this creates a real dilemma, right, for any development team out there. On one hand, you've got this incredible promise of a massive productivity boost from AI. But on the other, there's this scary reality that if the AI doesn't get your architecture, it could actually end up creating more bugs and more problems than it solves.
Because let's be honest, for most of us, the tough part of the job isn't writing some brand new code in a nice, clean file. No way. The hard part is going into a massive system that's spread across dozens, maybe even hundreds of repos, and trying to make a change without breaking everything. That one little tweak in a shared library that could take down production, that's the real challenge we're trying to solve here.
So, how are the big players tackling this problem? Well, we're going to look at three main contenders today, and each one has a really different approach, a different philosophy. We've got Amazon Q, the one that's baked right into the AWS world. Then there's Google's super experimental agent, Antigravity. And finally, a tool called Augment Code, which is all about that deep architectural analysis. Yeah, let's give these tools some personalities to make it easier to grasp. You can think of Amazon Q as your dedicated AWS specialist. It's an absolute pro inside its own ecosystem, but its knowledge pretty much stops at the repository's edge. Then you've got Google Antigravity, which is like this bold, autonomous explorer. It's really cool and ambitious, but it's kind of exploring without a map of the existing world. And that brings us to Augment Code, the architecture whisperer. It needs a little time up front to study that map, but once it does, it understands the entire landscape. Okay, so when you boil it all down, the real difference between these tools, it isn't just about how fast they are or what languages they support. No, it all comes down to one thing, the battle for context. So what do we actually mean when we say context? Look, it's not just about the code in the single file you're looking at. True, meaningful context is an AI's ability to see all those invisible threads that connect that one file to dozens, maybe hundreds of others across your whole code base. It's about knowing how all your services talk to each other, so when you make a change over here, you don't accidentally blow something up way over there. And this is where you see the fundamental split in how these tools think. On one side, you have something like Google Antigravity. It's designed to build its own knowledge, but only on new code that it creates itself. It's that explorer mapping a brand new, undiscovered island. Augment Code is the complete opposite. It's built to be more like a historian or an archaeologist. Its whole job is to dig deep into your existing code to figure out how and why it was built the way it was. And this right here really shows you the danger of being architecturally blind. There's this quote from a user who was testing anti-gravity on a really tough problem. And they said its plan was, and I'm quoting here, technically sophisticated but architecturally wrong because it couldn't see the constraints. Wow. In other words, it came up with a clever solution that would have completely broken the system, all because it just didn't have that crucial context. So to get that kind of deep system-wide context, you have to be able to work at a truly massive scale. We're talking about tools like Augment Code that can crunch through more than 400,000 files across an entire organization. It's not just reading them, it's building this giant dependency graph that maps out how every single piece is connected. That's the kind of firepower you need for real enterprise-level intelligence. Okay, so having all that technical power is one thing. That's great. But actually getting it deployed and used in a real company, that's a whole different ballgame. So let's shift gears a bit from the code itself and talk about the business side of things. Is the tool actually production ready? Because, this is the question that kills so many proof of concepts, right? A tool can have the most mind-blowing features you've ever seen, but if your security and compliance teams can't sign off on it, well, it's a complete non-starter. It's dead in the water for any serious business. And this kind of stuff is exactly why security teams are, so careful. Check out this quote from a Reddit user who was playing around with Google Antigravity. They said, "The concerning part is that it escalated privileges on its own without checking or asking." Yikes. An AI agent that just decides to give itself more power on your systems without permission? That's not a cool feature. That is a massive, unpredictable security nightmare waiting to happen. So when you actually start looking at the kind of checklist a procurement or security team uses, the differences in maturity become really, really obvious. Take something like SOC 2 Type 2 compliance. That's a basic requirement for tons of companies. You can see right here that a tool like Augment Code has it, while the others either don't or it's limited because they're still in preview. These aren't minor details. These are the kinds of things that become immediate hard blockers to getting a tool approved. So with all that said, how do you actually make a choice? The key here is to stop thinking about finding the one best tool overall. It's really about picking the right AI teammate for the specific job you need to get done. And of course, performance numbers can help you decide. There's this benchmark called SWE-bench, which is basically a standardized test to see how well an AI can solve really tricky software engineering tasks. And the results are pretty telling. An agent that has that deep architectural context, like Augment Code, is hitting a success rate over 70%. That's a huge jump from the competitor average of 54%. And what that means for you in the real world is just fewer failed runs and a lot less time wasted trying to figure out why the AI's code doesn't work. And you know what? This next number might be even more important. This is its score for detecting what we call architectural violations. Think of things like a new piece of code that accidentally bypasses your security middleware. A score of 59% here is more than double the industry average, which is sitting at around 25%. This is the kind of superpower that literally prevents production outages before they can ever happen. Okay, so let's tie this all together. Here's the bottom line. Which tool is for which job? If your team basically lives inside the AWS ecosystem and you're mostly working within a single repository, Amazon Q is going to be a fantastic specialized choice. The integration is just seamless. Now, if you're on a research team and you're just exploring what autonomous agents can do on brand new projects, well, then Google Antigravity is a really fascinating thing to experiment with. But if your day-to-day job is working on a messy, complex production system that spans tons of repositories, you absolutely need a tool that was built from the ground up for that architectural understanding and reliability. And that's where something like Augment Code comes in. And really, that leaves us with one final question to think about. As you start bringing AI into your team, you have to decide, what job are you hiring it for? Are you just looking for a junior coder, someone who knows the syntax but is going to need constant supervision to make sure they don't break things? Or are you looking to hire a seasoned architect, someone who understands the whole system, who sees the big picture, and can help you build and maintain it safely? Because ultimately, the choice you make there is going to define the real impact AI has on your team and your company.